Okay, guys, we're a little bit behind time, and the delegation does have making a presentation at Waterloo, so we're going to skip the consent items for now. We'll bring them at the end. We're going to do item number 3 and get into that one right away if we could. Who's kicking it off here? Yeah.
Sure.
Ms.
Thank
Kugler.
you. All right. So today we're here to talk about the municipal accommodation tax. So you would have received in your packages some information within the report, but also I believe at each one of your tabletops that you have in front of you letters of support for moving forward with the municipal accommodation tax. To take us through the presentation today, it's very brief. Really, we're just going to high level tell you why a MAT is important, what MAT comparators are out there, what funds will be generated, and then also the proposed allocations for the fund, and then our next steps. So why a MAT makes sense is that MAT generally impacts our traveling visitors to the community. It will help us raise funds that will lead us better through our promotions as well as attracting events to the community. 4% will be added to each night stay on hotels, motels, and Airbnbs. MAT is a standard tool that's used to fund tourism, promote events, as well as promote tourism. Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing Corp believes that they're underfunded, and not only the community as well. When we're trying to compete with other communities, a large part of the funding that brings some of the major festivals and events to the communities is based on tourism dollars. As well, this has been work that's been underway by all the municipalities in the township, so it's been a very inter-municipal approach to the proposed MAT that's coming to the Waterloo region. So on the screen in front of you, you will see the MAT comparators. And in November 2017, the province of Ontario announced that a transit accommodation regulation would be in effect as of December 1st, 2017. So when you look at the table, you'll see that some communities were ready and started the initiative already. And there are other communities that are actually still coming on board like we are. Ottawa moved forward in January 1st of 2018, and in the list you'll see a number of other comparators that are on and already collecting the tax since 2018. There are 2 communities that actually they already had a DMF in place, which was a destination fund that they collected, and they've stayed with that. Those are the only 2 that are at 3%, but realistically, where Waterloo Region is moving forward aligns with everyone else. And we're proposing a July 1st, 2019. The funds that could be generated from a municipal accommodation tax for the City of Kitchener, based on our 10 hotel properties and 1,090 rooms, is roughly $938,000 could be generated. That's based on research that was completed in 2017. Through a study that was commissioned by the Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing Corp, along with the RTO4, and it was completed by CBRE, and it was based on the levels of accommodations and the room utilization at the time. And so this is an estimate. It's not based on full capacity. It's actually based on numbers that were in use at the time. If the funds are obtained and collected, then reasonably what will happen is 50% will be retained by the Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing Corp. 40% will remain with the City of Kitchener, which, based on our rooms, would leave us with $256,000 annually, and 10% would go to the region. And the reason for the funding to go to the region is that they have a lot of the infrastructure related to culture in the community, and it's important, as well as they have some of the transportation that's imperative to our special events, our festivals, and our tourism as far as sport goes.
Okay, just before you move off that slide, sorry to interrupt,
Sure.
but I just wanted to clarify. I think I understand, because this might be the old data, but in the report that we have on page 3-8, it has that $256,000 number as $375,000.
Oh, sorry.
3-8. So maybe this, I'm not sure, I'm assuming this, well, one of these must be an updated number. Right.
So we will update the slide. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, just want to confirm. Okay. Please go ahead.
We might have left some of these there when we were sharing them between the municipalities. So So the proposed allocations, I started to sort of share some of those. So the proposed allocations then will be for Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing to help guide them in their strategic plan. So recently they just completed their Destination Next, which has identified 4 pillars for attracting events and cultural events and sport tourism, as well as overnight stay into the community. The city and the region's allocation will be that we propose a reserve fund so that it will help us and enable other tourism, sport, cultural infrastructure, some bid dollars towards some festivals and events, as well as helping with funding of some major events. The allocation will include regional event enhancement, which may inquire, similar to when we did hometown hockey, sometimes when some of those events come in, there's some dollars that the city actually has to contribute to bring those events forward that will encourage and grow the tourism. There is more detail in the report on Appendix B, so if you want more detail, it's laid out there. And then as far as the next steps go, to date, staff are working to establish a bylaw to implement the municipal accommodation tax for July 1st. The second step will be to enter into agreements to implement the MAT. Specifically, we need to ensure that we have one in place with Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing Corp., but there will also be some additional agreements required. In 2020, staff will update council on the progress that the municipal accommodation tax is making. As well, in 2022, there will be a full joint study done to evaluate the effectiveness of the program. Just what's not there is that as we're all moving forward, each of the municipalities and the townships, currently this report or a similar report has gone forward to Cambridge. Cambridge Council has accepted and moved forward with endorsing the MAT, and Woolwich has as well. Later today, Waterloo will have a similar presentation, and then the rest of the townships and will also receive an update too. Today I have with me, Minto sends her regrets, so she was unable to join us, but we have Chair of Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing Corp here, Nancy Kaiser, as well as the incoming Chair, Vanessa Stevenson. So I will take my staff position. If you have questions for staff, we'll be glad to answer them, but we also have Vanessa and Nancy here to answer questions.
Okay, very good. So anyone that's attended some regional council meetings will be familiar with this entire item. Again, due to the constraints of time, I would ask committee to restrict questions in terms of what these dollars can go towards. There is an appendix in the report, and the recommendation is that we don't discuss it until where the dollars go until we have a steady flow of revenue. In the meantime, it will build up in the reserve. So with that, thank you for coming in. We have 5 people in the queue for questions. Councillor Ioannidis.
My questions are basically, what was the precipitous that created this? Was it the Liberal government created passed this down that we were able to collect these funds?
Ms. Kugler?
So it was through the government in 2017. It was a regulation that was brought in December 2017.
Okay. Why did it take us so long to see this?
I would suggest that given the complexity of working in a multi-tiered government, it took some finesse for Waterloo Regional Tourism Marketing Corp. To work through each of the townships and the cities to get them aligned and with a common focus. You really want to have the same collection from each of the municipalities in the township. It's much easier to implement, and so I would say that a large part of it was doing the studies, the research, and bringing forward the right dollar in time.
All right, thank you for that. When the time's appropriate, Chair Davey, I'm prepared to move the recommendation with comments.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Schneider.
I have no questions, just comments. Having been on committees that are trying to attract and have attracted provincial and national tournaments, this is something that's greatly needed for the seeding for the funding to even apply to host a tournament. The committees need the funds to do it, and they start with nothing, so this is great, and I can see this greatly enhancing our own events and festivals at no cost to the taxpayer.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I have a math question first. It's on the on page 3.3 there. where you divvy up the 3.2 million, if I use the same ratio for Kitchener as you did for Cambridge, our cut would be $1,275,000. A 1,090 rooms should bring in more than 1,026 rooms, should it not? Well, I'll leave that with
Ms. Kugler, do you want
you. Pardon?
Ms. Kugler is prepared to answer. I'm guessing it's based on the revenue per room, but...
Pardon?
Ms. Kugler? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Through you, Chair Davey. So where Chair Davey was going is that the room revenues that are generated from the rooms vary from establishment to establishment, but it's also these numbers and those estimates are based on the current occupancy. So Cambridge might have a higher occupancy on their 1,026 than Kitchener did in the time of the study.
Okay. Do we have, from what I read, we have no choice in that the Waterloo, let me see, Region Tourism Marketing Corporation gets 50% of it. There's no, that's not a decision to be made.
Part of the mandate for bringing it in is that 50% goes to the destination marketing or the tourism corporation in place.
Okay. Now, are we privy on this council to see the financial statements of the WRTMC?
Yes, we are.
Because I would like, I'm supporting where you're going here, but I would like to see the statements, last audited financial statements, plus a budget of this organization. It's an organization that has been funded by the taxpayers in the region, and here we're getting a big influx of money, and already we've decided all the different ways of spending it. None of this is going back to our taxpayers, so I think I would just like to be able to see where that money is going to be spent. Okay? Thank you.
And that's something we can provide after their AGM because the documents will be available to us.
Yeah, and we can have that before it comes for ratification in 2 weeks, right?
We can have the last audited statements. I'll find out the timing.
Very good. Councillor Michaud?
Thank you. I just want to just say that the Waterloo Region Tourism, as far as I know, do not have a very large budget to work with for all the work that they've done. And I think that this 50% tax going towards them would certainly enhance this region. And, to speaking to Councillor Gazzola, what he says, not going back to the taxpayers, it would bring more people into the region, which in turn would go back to our turning our economy. So I would totally support this. Thank you.
Okay, there's no one else in the queue. Before going back to Councillor Gazzola, thank you, Ms. Stevenson and Ms. Kaiser, for coming in. It looks like we're going in the direction to be happy with, and we'll move to Councillor Hernandez to close.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Davey. I know for myself, and I'm sure others as well, we've been looking for sources of funding for our community. In particular, we want to become a city called a festival city, and it's one of our plans from Make It Kitchener and everything else. So these are incredible to see that this is here and that we're going to have some resources to enhance some of those goals with our economic development plan. And so I'm pleased to see to move this forward. And I want to see the Junos here. I want to see other events here. I want to make sure we're relevant outside, because I know even though they do cost some dollars, but the high profile that it brings is some revenue that is generated through exposure, and I think it's rather important that we continue and build upon that.
Okay, very good. With that, moved by Councillor Hernandez. Those in favour? And that carries with all those that are here. Let's just get the consent items out of the way now. Can I get a mover for the consent items? Moved by Councillor Schneider. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I have a couple of quick questions, if I could. On the...
Sorry, on which item?
Oh, on both of them.
On both?
I just
Both?
wanna-
Okay. So we have to take a motion to move those out. Moved by Councillor Gazzola, move those into discussion. Those in favour? You see hands, people, and opposed? That carries. Councillor Gazzola, questions?
Yeah, maybe I just wanted some clarification of how these credits work, but I'll leave that. I'll go to what we're doing here. What are we approving here today with this? We're not changing it. Yeah, what are we doing exactly?
Mr. Gross.
Through the chair, the reason this is back for your consideration, two reasons. One is there's an increase in cost, and that increase in cost was identified in the last budget.
We dealt with that in the budget.
$5.5 million. The second reason is that there are less participants in the cost-sharing agreement than before.
Okay. I guess the question, my concern was, with those changes, does that do anything to us going forward? Are we still able to deal with it in the same manner we were going to deal with it?
Yes.
Because it is a 50% increase in the cost, and I'm not sure how many developers pulled out. So, but it doesn't affect us in any way.
That's correct.
Okay. I would like to understand some of the intricacies, but that we don't need to deal with that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, actually, Mr. Gross, 1 second. Councillor Gallagher seconds in on this item. Oh, okay, sorry. Councillor Gazzola, go ahead. Councillor Gazzola, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to go on to the next one.
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm right. Okay, sorry. No, on the brownfield one, I just wanted to clarify. Right now, the school boards are not involved in it, right? So we lose out on that because the school boards aren't involved in it, or the province on behalf of the school board. Is that not right? Our share of the taxes are lower because some of our taxes go to the school board. So should they not also, in that type of a program, be involved in it?
Mr. Morgan.
Through the chair, early on in the process, they were asked to participate, and they chose not to.
Okay, so but I just want to make it clear, by them / the province not participating, it's the city and the region pays a larger portion of the costs. Yeah? I mean, it's a good thing, but we need to just keep that in mind that the province isn't helping out. The other thing, the question I wanted. I understood this whole agreement, this whole process was being reviewed. Is that the case or not?
Through the chair, that's correct. The process is being reviewed. The region has taken a report to the regional council, which was deferred pending some further investigation until June, I believe.
Do we have a copy of that report? Can that be shared with Kitchener Council?
Certainly.
Yeah. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gallagher. I was just going to go to you in case you had questions for Mr. Gross while he was there, so go ahead with your comment, please.
No, I don't have any questions. I just quickly want to say that the Middle Strasbourg trunk sewer is a critical piece of infrastructure that we need in order to build some of the community facilities that we're looking to build in the Southwest, including the branch library and the Rosenberg Community Center. And so I think this is an important agreement to move forward so that we can continue to move forward with those projects in a timely manner.
Okay, very good. Moved by Councillor Schneider. Those in favor? And that carries unanimously. We will actually keep an order here because we're catching up on time a little bit, and we'll deal with Digital Kitchener.
Good to go. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Davey and members of Finance and Corporate Services Committee.
Good afternoon.
In January 2017, Council approved the city's first ever digital strategy, Digital Kitchener. Digital Kitchener was developed with consultation with more than 1,500 people consisting of council, staff, technology leaders, community builders, and residents, resulting in 4 clear themes that are the foundation of Digital Kitchener: connected, innovative, on-demand, and inclusive. The strategy describes a vision for how Kitchener will use digital technology to create a world-class smart city. We are at the 2 years mark into Digital Kitchener. The staff report that you have lists a number of the achievements made under each of the themes, and the infographic that's being passed around now provides some of the highlights of the achievements with some interesting statistics, such as our 18,606 node narrowband IoT network that has been deployed with the LED streetlight retrofit, the city's first communication tower land lease agreement allowing us to better influence tower placement and aesthetics while creating a new revenue source for the city, the 6 IoT pilot projects that have been identified and are underway at this time, the 268 laptops and barcode scanners that were deployed during the 2018 municipal election to do real-time voter strike-off, and the over 600 devices that connect to our free public Wi-Fi on a daily basis from our 29 public facilities and parks. As technology moves quickly and new opportunities present themselves, staff have identified an annual work plan for Digital Kitchener each year. We refer to this work plan as our BRAVE plan, as it reminds us that we're taking bold steps and working in subject areas where best practices may not yet have been defined and where we need to create them. For 2019, we've identified a number of initiatives. I know you're on a very tight schedule. They are in the report, so I won't go through and provide summaries on those, but rather, if there's any questions on those particular items, I'll be able to respond to those. So I'll keep it short and happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Very good. I do appreciate that. Questions, Councillor Gazzola.
Are there any facilities in the city of Kitchener that aren't on Wi-Fi, that don't have public Wi-Fi?
So I believe all of our public facilities where the public would attend on a regular basis are. There may be a few, I'm just trying to think of any that we've always tried to put public Wi-Fi in where there's fiber connectivity. There may be a few facilities where we don't have that yet. I believe we've hit almost all of them at this point, though. But we do keep looking for opportunities to push that out further as opportunities arise.
Okay, on the middle of page 4.2 and tying into this, there's 10,390 tests, or 10,380 on here. What does that mean?
So when we first launched Digital Kitchener, one of the things that we had a real struggle with was understanding the state of internet connectivity across Kitchener. And we ended up partnering with CIRA. They were running CIRA is the Canadian Internet Registry Authority. They were running a pilot program with cities to help them get clear indications from the actual performance of your residents' internet connections. So we partnered with them and we did a fair amount of promotion to get that out. And the 10,000 tests are people that have run tests to help us better understand the state of internet connectivity. That information was important to help build the case for support of SWIFT to get fiber connectivity.
If I go into some site, a Rogers site, I can do that. I can test my speed. I can test upload and download. Is that the same thing?
So it's the same thing, but the benefit here is that we actually got the data from those tests, which we wouldn't get from Rogers will not share their performance data with us or other vendors. So we really needed a manner to be able to get a sense of what's the real state of internet connectivity in Kitchener.
But that changes too, doesn't it? That's not constant.
Very true.
Right? So what benefit does it have for you to know that? What is the benefit of that? I don't understand. I'm not a techie. I don't understand.
So it really was one of the first opportunities we had to get data in our hands on what residents were dealing with internet connectivity. We still have pockets of the city where nobody has run this test, and it's largely because there are not good internet connectivity options in those areas. So the data we receive from this shows us where service is good and where it could use improvement.
If service isn't good, is that because of whoever provides their service?
That is true. It's up to the providers to do that, but even being able to share this information with them helps them understand the state.
So can you get after the service providers? I have a hell of a time with the mine too. that drops off. Can you do anything about? I'm just trying to understand what we're doing here and what does it, what does it mean? Or are we duplicating things that other people are doing?
And that would be the purpose for why we wanted this information, to understand, is this something we really needed to continue to work on, supporting things like SWIFT, and know whether or not we needed to encourage the vendors to actually improve service in our area to keep us competitive.
Okay. I'm still not clear, but there's 18,606 nodes. That's one on every street light? Is that what they are?
That's correct, and that includes both the city's streetlights and the region of Waterloo, where they installed the network as well, but that makes up our coverage.
Okay, so what is that doing for us?
So that is giving us...
In layman's terms, in a layperson's terms, what's it doing?
It's giving us the ability to manage the streetlights, so the dimming schedules have actually been put in place that allow us to lower the energy consumption of the streetlights. That's today. As we're moving forward with our pilot projects, we're going to use that network to do things like our automated meter reading, our smart parking solutions, all those types of projects will leverage this network as well.
But that's not Star Wars, right? That's not Star Wars. I'm just trying to understand, we have a big department set up here, what are we doing? Like, I can control my lights at home now with this, right?
So it's not Star Wars, but what it is we're leveraging one opportunity to benefit others. The fact that we were able to move ahead and install that network, saving electricity as the streetlights were put in, that business case more or less paid for itself. Mm-hmm. We now have this network that we can leverage for other purposes.
Okay, I look forward to hearing further things. I just want to put a push in while I still have the floor and I'm over time for the system to be able to read our utilities. That keeps getting pushed off and pushed off. To me, that is a very practical thing. That where does that stand? Can I expect it by the end of the year?
So unfortunately, the system that we purchased went through an acquisition right at the time we were implementing it. So Itron purchased Silver Spring and took the networking company in, and they've been working through some processes to bring those two companies together. It has been slower than we would have hoped. We didn't foresee that happening. We're very pleased with where they're going to be taking their products, but at this point they're suggesting that it will be towards the end of this year, the beginning of next year, before we have the product in our hand for the water side. So that was one of our preferences, that we wanted to move that ahead quickly, but the product line that they have, Itron being a market leader in metering and Silver Spring being the market leader in the streetlight, it's a good technology marriage. It's just the timing is not that wonderful for us.
Are there other suppliers out there?
There are other suppliers, but I wouldn't necessarily look to them at this point. Given the benefit that this one will have, we'll be able to deploy it much cheaper. It really, for the water side, we don't have to replace meters. We're only replacing the sending unit outside. The other benefit of that is that it removes the radio communications from the basement of somebody's house to the outside wall, where we can guarantee signal transmission, and we can also replace batteries in the 10-year lifespan of those.
Okay, Councillor Gazzola, you went considerably over time. Okay,
I just have one more quick question.
Okay, one more question.
Okay, so if this program is in place by the end of the year, how long will it take for the city to make it practical to start reading meters like that?
So we've been working with the utility staff to understand what a rollout would look like. We haven't, I don't know if I can answer that 100% accurate at this point. Obviously, this is a high priority project, and we would prioritize it as best we could with utilities. As quickly as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, this is really exciting to see. And I think that if any area is going to lead on this, it has to be the City of Kitchener. And I'm really excited to see the two areas that are most important to me are the innovative piece and the inclusive piece. And that really fits in well with, I guess, our still draft strategic plan that we're looking at, where we talked about how it's important to have tech kind of go through all of the different areas of a strategic plan that we're looking at. So this is really great to see. One thing that I'm wondering with the innovative piece, I think this working with the hub, with the innovation hub that we've set up at Communitech is really exciting. Is there a way of taking that, taking our learnings from there and helping provide that to other communities, or frankly, is there some ways to make money from some of our technology and that we're learning from, and share that with other municipalities?
So in terms of creating a revenue source out of the lab, no opportunities have come up yet where we've really seen that as a potential. Not to say that won't happen, but I think we need a fairly distinct set of circumstances that will allow us to have something that we can then sell as a product. So it's certainly something we're keeping an eye out for, but it wasn't our sole purpose in moving forward with this. In terms of sharing things with the other municipalities, we've had significant interest from a number of municipalities. We've probably had 10 or 15 come in and actually meet with us in the lab to find out what we're doing, all the way from Halifax and various municipalities are quite interested in what we're doing. So we are sharing those and sharing best practices with them as well. And hopefully as we start producing things out of the lab in terms of IoT products, we've got some things that can benefit other municipalities as well.
Well, and I think that's really, really important, and it's really important that we get our message out about just how innovative we are here, and that other communities are wanting to know what we're learning here, and a really great marketing message to get out, which can only help further our leadership spot in the tech community here. So this is wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Michaud?
Thank you. Thank you. This is wonderful. I'm going to concur with Councillor Johnson. It's funny because just, I don't know, a few years ago, we were just talking about Wi-Fi downtown. So to look at this and see how far we've come, it's pretty awesome. I just have one question under the inclusive spot, where 27 public access computers, and in the notes it says such as KPL. Where are the other areas? Is it community centers, and how do you identify which ones get what?
Through the chair, the 27 is actually all within our facilities, so those are in our community centers. I think we don't have any outside of community centers, so it's all within our community centers where there's staff available to be able to assist. KPL has their own, and those numbers aren't included in here. We have been working very close with KPL. We're developing a public access standard that we will bring back to council hopefully in the next steering committee cycle. And working with them, learning from them what they're doing well, and looking for opportunities on how we can support them push out their programs as well.
And just to add to that, just one more question with that, with regards to the community centers. Do you identify community centers of higher needs and give them a little more access because of the demographics? They might not have access to computers at home, or do you consider that?
So at this point, we've largely leaned on the community center staff to dictate what the number that they need is. I think they do range from 1 computer in certain community centers to 3, and it largely depends on the needs within the community and the community center's ability to support the program as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think this the chart here before us just shows the considerable work that's either underway or it's already been done. Some things I think that we still need to continue on focusing on. I think the rollout of public city facilities, free Wi-Fi, and I think we've come a long way. But we've been focused on parks as well. Where are we on that? Public Wi-Fi in our parks. I know district parks we have been working on. How about broadening that into our neighborhood parks?
So in terms of parks at this point, Victoria Park and McLennan Park are the two that are served. We're looking at what we can do in Kiwanis. Kiwanis is one of those areas that doesn't have high connectivity, but with the renovations and increased traffic there, we're trying to provide networking in that area, whether or not it will be widespread in the park. And also with the RGB, I'm going to get that wrong. The Schlegel Park that's being constructed, we're working with staff and making sure that conduits are in place so that we can provide Wi-Fi in that park as well once it's...
Could we utilize a street light network to facilitate Wi-Fi in smaller neighborhood parks as well?
So our existing narrowband network does not have the capacity to run Wi-Fi through it. There are other products that can go with that to provide Wi-Fi off the streetlights. Again, it would be something that I think we'd have to test before we'd ever go to a full deployment. The streetlights are not the ideal height and location for Wi-Fi necessarily. Generally, the access points are installed lower, but there are things we could look at to push it out further.
Have you considered looking at doing a pilot project and seeing if that's doing a feasibility?
We haven't at this point. We just heard from the vendor on Friday that they had that available, so we haven't reassessed that at this point.
So there's a lot more things that could end up coming down the road as well. So it's seeming as if this is not just a standalone static technology. There could be additional upgrades and improvements or add-ons in the years to come.
Absolutely.
And one of those is, of course, as Councillor Gazzola touched on, the use of meter readings. You said water is something that we likely will foresee, and perhaps in 2020. Gas, what's the limiting factor on?
So the gas capability is actually going to be available sooner.
Oh, okay.
The company has focused their efforts on that because of the Measurement Canada requirements to have the devices certified. So they will actually have that available. Now, they'll have it available, but it still needs to go through the certification process. So my guess is they're trying to get both products so that they can be deployed at the same time, which most customers, utility customers, would be looking to put both out.
I'm sorry if this was already asked because I came in midway of your presentation, so about the gas, so it's good to know that that's already being rolled out. So is that going to be additional cost to us, or this is something that's already within the capacity of the infrastructure that we have?
So it will definitely be an additional cost. And let me just clarify, we don't currently have the equipment. It's the vendor that's...
No, I realize that,
okay.
Yes.
It will be an additional cost for the units that do the sending. What it will do is leverage the existing network that's already there. And with the 18,000 nodes, we can be assured we've got good coverage across the entire...
So we would have to add these units on to the existing...
Correct.
The street light.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's a fair enough cost too. Okay. The other thing I want to touch on is using this, obviously, the various things that we do, but having an economic spin-off as well. Are we working through any pilot projects that could have a business case associated to it that could be a revenue generator?
So there's possibility of some that we have. One is an asset management product to be able to track city assets. It's hard to say at this point whether or not anything could come out of it in terms of benefit back to the city. We're working with a partner on that one, so it's, again, we've got to see how things progress with that.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and I would encourage, I'm sure as my colleagues would agree, that that's something that we want to utilize. If the possibility exists, we should build that out. The last thing in 6 seconds I have, we have someone from economic development here too. Could we showcase what we have, which is, I think we're in the leading of the communities that have that wide network as we do. Could we project this out and market this and say, come here, test out, whatever data collection, or within certain reasons that you would want to do, or partner with us, that we could attract tech companies to come to our community?
So we've certainly been, promoting this with the companies that we've been working with. I'm not sure if it's enough of a draw for them to pick up and move to Kitchener, but the asset management example that I mentioned, that company is looking to build something that will work on our network. We're also, because we're at the beginning stages of this, we have to be cognizant of all the security aspects of it. So we've created a secondary network that is the exact same technology that we'll be piloting these things on before they come on to our main network. The last thing we want to do is create any security issues with our through the narrowband network by bringing on new technology that hasn't been fully tested. So.
Thank you. I hear there's a lot of potential, but I guess we just have to wait and see. Thank you.
Mr. Bloom, would you want to add something?
Through the chair, I was just going to add that on a broader whole, the entire smart cities movement is growing a lot of steam, and there are seemingly, if not monthly, every other month, some kind of conference or session on smart cities. We were invited to attend one about a month ago, which typically is both public sector and private sector interests. So we certainly recently in one in Toronto were able to share our story with significant interest from those that are attending on both sides, very interested in what we're doing. So I think between Dan's team and mine, we'll make sure we stay as plugged into those as possible, as those get us great exposure that you're talking about.
Very good. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Thanks for this update. Mr. Murray, it's really good to see the statistics, in particular with On Demand, having 176 GeoHub there for the open data and the amount for billing and everything else. This is all fabulous, and the inclusivity as well. This is excellent. My concern is, do we have enough resources to move forward with what we're dealing right now in the lab, to be able to monetize some of the things that some of our members of council have already mentioned?
I'm never going to stand up here and say I've got enough resources. I work in IT. However, I think the important thing is we've been able to accomplish quite a bit. We have been playing around with how the lab is operating. It was a new thing for us, and certainly trying to figure out the right amount of people and how we operate that, the balance of engagement with city staff to work being done in the lab is another thing that we have, I'll say, struggled with and learned over the first year. We have actually chosen to not hire co-ops this first round, which has opened up time to be able to hold conversations with staff, and then we're bringing in double the number of co-op staff in the summer term. So that'll allow us to move things ahead much quicker. So we're playing around with this. We could always use more resources, and I could use them on the 8th floor. I can use them in the lab. But we're moving ahead, and we're able to see progress with what we're doing.
Okay, I think that's good, and I think it would be valuable if there was a business case put forward towards committee at one point, and so that we can leverage this technology, whether you do need for more resources or not. I think would be valuable. Again, another question you'd mentioned we had about 10 or 11 municipalities that have gone through our lab already. Are you aware of any other municipalities right now that are coming close to where we are right now? Because my fear is, just like when with the music industry and everything else, we seem to be falling behind. We start it and then we fall behind. So I don't want us to fall behind. So I want to be clear, where are we at this point?
It's really hard to say exactly. Based on what I'm seeing, I think we're still in a very positive position. I think we've made decisions that will give us a long-term benefit back. There are, some of the cities in the Toronto area, Fredericton, have started creating labs and working through some of these things, but they're largely working with larger vendors who are promoting what they're doing. I still think in the trenches we're actually producing more and getting more value out of our money that we're putting into this than any other municipality. And we tend to, put a little bit more effort into the thought rather than products. And, I think if we can continue to do that, we'll see the most benefit out of what we're putting into the effort.
And again, this is no criticism on where I'm more than happy and pleased with the direction you guys have been, static actually. But I just, my fear is I want to see us continue to move forward. In fact, I want us to be first in the market for whatever technologies we come, because I think that's the competitive market that is out there. The first companies that are out there are the ones that will get the market share and the competitive advantage. So that's where I lay my concerns. And so, but other than that, I'm very ecstatic on the way we've gone, and I'm very pleased and proud of what our department and what we've done. So with that, I'm prepared to move this.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Thanks for this excellent report and the great work. One of the things, just building a little bit on Councillor Singh's question about internet access in parks, I'm thinking in particular of the Peter Hallman Ball Yard. It's a destination where we're able to attract a lot of tournaments from national and provincial tournaments because of the quality of the field there. And one of the biggest things that comes up in determining factors in receiving a bid, having it accepted, is internet accessibility, and I know we're working towards that. Do we have, under the resources of our Digital Kitchener, the ability to maybe have a partner for temporary internet service for events until we can have our own?
Through the chair, so yes, I believe we've facilitated internet access there through cellular connectivity with just loaner units that we have. So we have been able to do that for, I believe it was a fastball tournament there 2 years in a row, and we had outfitted them with that equipment at that point. We're always looking for, the opportunities where they may exist as well. So we've got Activa, which is right close to that. We could potentially look at feeding a line from there and giving a fiber-based internet. It's always that cost and benefit. Do we need it all 12 months of the year, or do we just need it when a major tournament comes in? So those are certainly discussions that we can have and look at different opportunities.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of questions of my own. I have a whole bunch, but I'm only going to ask a few. I'll connect to you at a later date. On the LED street light network, I believe Guelph installed the similar, or they're about to install a similar network. Are we aware of that?
So we were aware that they were looking to move ahead. I'm not sure if they have or not. They were looking to leverage the hydro network, and I think they've, with the changes in that, I'm not sure where that has gone.
Okay, I would suggest, last I heard, and this was probably 18 or so months ago, they were looking at, I thought it was the exact same network, the exact same vendor as us, so there might be some economies of scale there if we look at doing something as a partner city. I understand that Silver Springs was acquired by, sorry, I forgot the name.
Itron.
Itron, that's right. Itron, that's put us behind a little bit of where we would like to be. But have we reached out to Itron in terms of, we're interested in being more of a pilot, showcase type city with respect to their technology?
Absolutely. We actually met with them on Friday. They've just restructured their company around the new model, and so they were in to talk to us about that, and committed to us that they will work with us going forward with all the opportunities that are there. I'm confident we've still got the right solution. Like I mentioned before, it was just really a matter of timing.
To implement, okay, good. And looking forward, anything that we develop for our narrowband network, will generally be platform agnostic. I would think it might be able to scale to a broader band network, which leads me to the 5G question. It's in the report that we're going to be exploring that, and I see our first communications tower land lease. Now, my concern is, being a smaller municipality, we're typically the last to get this sort of aggressive network rolled out. So as part of the strategy, will we be looking at not only, for example, the land lease is great, but we're still profiting from that, whereas perhaps we should be looking at incentivizing. Is that going to be part of what we explore?
So we spent a significant amount of time in 2018 talking to the telecommunications vendors and trying to sort out what their plans are. They're not 100% certain how they're approaching 5G at this point, so we're really working with the limited information we've been able to get. But definitely, the ability to use Municipal assets is something we can control directly, and we can have a higher level of control in that. They are interested in streetlight poles, for instance, to be able to mount small cells on those. They've been able to share with us locations where they're looking to install towers. There's potentially 3, maybe 4 more potential locations that we can do on city lands in the next year or two. So we're looking at all of that and trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward to make sure that they know we're prepared to move ahead with this. The other thing I can suggest is that we've heard from the vendors that they are interested in our area. And if you think back to the rollout of LTE, it was quite a few years ago, but it was our area was actually one of the first to get that. And it seems as though the carriers are interested in continuing that. And I would suspect it's largely our tech community, but also the universities and colleges that drive a lot of subscribers. So it is an area of interest to them.
Okay, very good. I think that's hugely important for us going forward. Okay, there is no one else in the queue. It has been moved by Councillor Ioannidis. Those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, last but not least, we have the long-term financial plan.
Good afternoon, Chair Davey and members of the committee. Today I'm going to provide you with an overview of the project scope and timeline related to the long-term financial plan. As you know, this is an item that has been on the business plan for some time, and we're looking to advance the work this year and have it completed by the fall of 2019. So what is a long-term financial plan? It essentially really is a high-level document that is focused on the city's financial future. It includes a comprehensive financial framework for the municipality, which will also combine financial forecasting with strategizing. And so when you look at the forecast that we'll be putting together as part of the long-term financial plan, we do think it will be a 10-year time horizon for both capital but also operating and reserves in terms of projections. It also supports the decision-making process by formalizing the financial policies and practices of the municipality, really aligning with being transparent and making sure it's good governance in terms of having that all together in one document. And it should also be viewed as sort of a financial roadmap for the city. So what we'll be identifying is sort of where we're at as point A and where do we want to get to as point B. How we get there are a number of options and strategies that we'll be contemplating and highlighting as part of the plan. So when we think about how does this link in with the other things that we have on the go, the strategic plan being a large body of work that you're familiar with, and master plans as well that come forward for consideration. Really the long-term financial plan is very similar, but it's focused more on the financial side of things and ensuring that we can enable those plans to continue to move forward both now and in the future. And then other processes that align with that as well, the business planning process, the annual budget process, obviously help move those things along, but this really is the long sort of time horizon that we're looking at as part of the plan. So in terms of the financial framework that we're looking to put together, it's based on 3 levels. The first level being guiding principles, that it will provide the proper financial lens as we look at different priorities for the city. The next level down will be strategic areas of focus, and this will really be things that are identified that align under those guiding principles. And then finally, recommended actions. And so recommended actions, very similar to other master plans, will be very specific in terms of the timeline that we're looking to implement those in. They'll also be aligned with what we believe will be the term of council, so that you'll see, some recommendations might be implemented for 2020, others might be 2021, and so on. In terms of the guiding principles that we're looking to base the plan on, there are really 3 themes that we're looking at, the first being responsible. And when we're talking about responsible, the focus is being on the governance and process related elements from a financial point of view, making sure that things like transparency, accountability, are wrapped up within that. The next theme that we're looking at is being flexible, so ensuring that we can respond to opportunities as they come up and that we are in a financial position to do so, as well as any challenges that we might face. So as we talk about things like climate change, making sure that we're resilient enough to be able to address those things as they come up through the budget process as well. And then finally, sustainable, making sure that we are thinking about decisions not only based on today, but striking the right balance between things that we want to move forward, but also future generations in that consideration as well. In terms of the policies that are included as part of the review, there are two that we're planning to look at, which are existing policies, being the reserve and reserve fund policy as well as investment policy. And the scope of the review was outlined in the report. But three new policies we are looking to introduce would be a capital financing and debt policy. And this will really formalize what our process is related to the use of debt, but also look at the issue of internal borrowing as well, that I know was raised through budget discussions. Also look at creating a dividend policy, which will formalize basically what our current practice is related to the gas utility, golf, and also the parking dividend. And then finally, a budget control policy, where we will look at the current variance reporting process in operating and also look at opportunities within capital as well in terms of projects and reporting out on those. There are three specific issues that we are proposing to look at as part of the long-term financial plan. The first being infrastructure funding. And we know that there are issues that all municipalities face in terms of dealing with their infrastructure issue. We're planning to identify and address our infrastructure gap as part of this work, and also have the focus be on aging facilities. We know you heard through the Leisure Facilities Master Plan that maintaining our existing facilities is a key importance, and it's something that we do feel we need to look at in terms of the various options for doing so as part of this work. The next area that we'll be looking at is operating budget room that's being created starting in 2020 as a result of expiring debt. So EDIF debt charges are starting to come off the books, and that will create capacity of $8.1 million over the next 10 years. And so council will have some decisions to make related to how that room is allocated, and there'll be a number of options presented for you to consider at a further strategic session that we'll be planning. And then finally, investment income. It came up through budget discussions as well in terms of how much investment income we're putting into the budget. And so we'd like to tackle that issue as part of the long-term financial plan and come up with a consistent and agreed upon methodology to follow related to that. There was also council interest during budget raised related to using a CPI average, and so that's something we'll also look at as part of this work. Multi-year budgets was raised through the business planning process as a question, and then also the issue of affordability and impact of increases. And so what we use as benchmarks related to that, we'll look at that as part of the work as well. And so finally, in terms of the timeline, we are looking to have two strategic sessions. The first strategic session on May 27th will focus on infrastructure funding and the operating budget room that's being created. And so we will provide options for council to look at as part of that strategic session related to those two different issues. We also will come back in August and have another strategic session related to the investment income specific issue, and also bring back the draft financial policies that are being proposed. And then finally, a draft long-term financial plan will be presented to council on September 9th with final approval targeted to be October 21st. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think this is great that we are looking at a prudent strategy towards our long-term financial planning, especially when we have things that are coming up that could be impactful as if the EDIF as it expires, and additional monies are available for us to determine how we see to plan that out. Well, one thing I wanted to touch on is when we look at our long-term financial planning, do we also put focus on our assets as well? Our large assets that consideration, when is a prudent time for us to consider deposition or readjustment, whatever you want to call it. Just to name a few, we have large assets, of course, our two golf courses. We have our significant investment to Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro, and then a gas utility. Do we consider those as part of our financial planning?
It certainly could be a recommendation that might come out of the plan. Some of the work that is contemplated as SFC is a dividend policy. We're also looking at reserve and reserve funds, so there is an opportunity through a review of those policies to have that type of discussion. I would guess that it's a larger body of work outside of the long-term financial plan itself, but it could be a recommendation that's part of the plan to look at a future date.
So we will have some reflection on it. correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And from that reflection, there could be some additional suggestions or opportunity through strategic planning that this council could take and give additional direction.
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. Is this the first time we've had such a plan? Or is this replacing an expired one or one that's about to be expired?
So we currently don't have a long-term financial plan for the city. So in terms of a comprehensive plan, we have a long-term financial plan for our water because we're required to under the province. But in terms of for the entire city, we don't currently have a plan.
And I understand this was mandated by City Council. That's why we're doing. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you repeat the
well,
question?
That it was requested by City Council that this plan be created. Is that how it came to be?
I wasn't here when the plan came forward on the business plan, but it is considered a best practice to have a long-term financial plan. You are seeing it more often now, even with grant opportunities. So, as an example, AMO, who administers the gas tax funding for municipalities, is now asking, do you have a long-term financial plan? Because it is considered that industry best practice to put something in place that is this type of document.
Okay, I guess I'm just wondering how we managed so far without one, and now why. Okay, but wait. Let me just ask my other question. How much
Mr. Chapman,
overlap is there in this?
Sorry, Mr. Chapman wanted to add to it.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure, through the chair. And so this goes back many years, well before Mr. Luttenbach's time. The city has engaged in long-term financial planning in the past. The last major effort would have been done probably in 2004, 2005, when a document called Strategic Directions for Financial Management was developed. And so a lot of the work that was done over the ensuing 10-year period was derived from that plan. And so I would certainly want to give Council comfort that we have a comprehensive structure of policies in place. We have a 10-year capital budgeting program. But right now we have no single document that Council could point to if someone said to you, what is your long-term financial strategy? And so the purpose here is to pull it all together. And as Mr. Luttenbach has indicated, we believe there are some gaps. And so through this process, we'll round out those gaps.
Okay, which I guess sort of leads to my last question, and that was how much overlap is there with the 10-year operating budget forecast and what's being proposed here?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, the 10-year capital budget forecast.
Yep.
How much overlap is there with that and with what's being proposed here?
So what we'll look at in terms of the forecast, we'll base it on the 2019 budget information and what we know in the plan right now. Where the forecast will provide some insight through the discussions that we have will be some modeling related to, whether the funding level related to capital will go up or whether, those type of issues are contemplated through the plan. And when those decisions are made by council related to those mechanisms, it would then inform future budgets as we get into the 2020 budget and beyond.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Thanks for this. I noticed that one of the areas for review are the minimum maximum targets for our reserve funds. And I know sometimes it's a great topic of discussion around budget time. Are there any ways to measure what is an acceptable level or an unacceptable level in a reserve fund?
So the intent of the review of the reserve fund policies will be to look at those. And I think there's some benchmarking that we can do to see what other municipalities are doing in terms of that regard. Also look at what sort of best practices would say related to it. But also come up with a strategy associated with how do we fund to different levels within those targets. So right now we have a minimum, we have a maximum. I think some of the work will look at what is the overall strategy and decision by council to say, is it the minimum that we're trying to achieve? Is it mid-range in terms of some of those reserves? But we'll also look at the context of all reserves together to say, is there opportunity to consolidate some of those reserves? Are there new reserves that we might need to think about? And so that's really the intent of the review.
Yeah, and we would be looking at the amount of reserves that we've used over the past couple of years.
We would look at reserve activity as one of those indications as well. And the balances obviously are related to the targets as part of that review.
Right. And the benefits of consolidation, I would imagine, if reserves wouldn't be used in one fund, they might be able to use by another if the need was great.
So it could be that we decide that there's a reserve that we currently have that maybe has very little activity, and we would transfer those funds for a different purpose. That's one option. Internal borrowing, which was raised during the budget time about borrowing from reserves, is something that we'll be looking at as part of the debt policy. So that will also touch on that component.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No one else in the queue. Just a couple of quick questions myself. I first wanted to, I think I asked you informally, but just on the record, as part of this review for the debt policy, we will be exploring, not to presuppose the answer, but we will be exploring the idea of borrowing from ourselves instead of issuing debt on a go-forward basis.
And that's correct. We'll look at that issue as part of this work.
Okay, good. And another key part of this, I think that's important for this council too, is again looking at that the annual target figure for our budget. So they'll be looking at a range of option for that budgetary number, because frankly we're exposed right now if we run into an anomalous year where we have either very high inflation of say 5%. I doubt very much our council would sit around and accept a 5% rate increase, and the other end of the spectrum as well, it's not impossible to see deflation in a certain year, which would put us in the unenviable position of trying to find money and cutting from the forecast. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing those options come back in terms of an averaging, and I think it's really important. Okay, there's no one else in the queue. I'm deeply supportive, but I don't have a mover for this item yet. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Singh. Those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And that concludes Finance and Corporate Services Committee.